Hey guys, Cade Wilcox here, host of the Primitive Podcast and CEO of Primitive. On today's episode, we had Robert Taylor, the CEO of United Supermarkets, with right at 95 locations, plus another 30 or 40 convenience stores and a couple manufacturing and distribution. I mean, it's just a really great company, a large company. Robert's been the CEO there for 10 years. Just had a great conversation with him about leadership and some of the things he's learned over the years. I think you're going to really enjoy this episode. So thanks for joining us. Really appreciate you listening in on these podcasts, and hope you enjoy this one just like I do. Well, Robert, it's so good to be with you this morning. I really appreciate you being on. So I think most people in Lubbock know you. You've been here a long time. But why don't you just give us a little bit about your background, where you went to college, how long you've been in Lubbock, about the family business and all that good stuff.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on, Kate. I appreciate it. It doesn't make you famous just because you've been any place a long time. So that's not a prerequisite for anything. But I have been in Lubbock a long time. My parents were in Childress, Texas, running a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week grocery store with another couple, and one would sleep while the other would run the store, and then they'd go back and forth.
Wow.
And so he saw an opportunity in Lubbock, and so moved to Lubbock when I was 2 years old. So obviously I don't remember anything about that move.
Yeah.
But he bought a small, back in that day it was called a candy and tobacco jobber, and there's all independent businesses then, and so he called on independent businesses for supplies, mainly restaurants and a lot of independent druggists and convenience stores, grocery stores. So he did that. It was a small business, family owned. My mother worked in it too some when she used to teach school. So that little business grew. And when I was a senior, went to Monterey High School. I'm a product of the Lubbock public school system, so you can take that. I don't know if that's good or bad.
That's a good thing.
It was good for me anyway. I hope I did.
You're one of their distinguished alumni at this point.
Yeah, hope I did them proud. So we'll see. So at that time, I didn't even think about going anywhere else to school. I walked across the street to Texas Tech, and probably one of the best things I ever did. And I really, whatever I've accomplished, I owe a lot of that to that background and the people I met and interacted with, and to this day exchanged with at Texas Tech.
That's awesome. I don't think I've ever asked you what you actually studied.
I was in management and
Okay.
with a minor in accounting.
Okay. Well, at that point, what did you foresee of your future? Like, do you remember what you wanted to do long term? Or were you already, have your eye on the family business?
No, I really didn't. I worked in the family business some all summers and everything.
Right.
But it wasn't really something that I really could see me doing. I was really, I think, maybe looking for a larger challenge, and that's kind of an age thing. I think you don't really understand and know everything at that age. So that was my focus, not knowing what I wanted to do. I wanted to get out and interview. And back in that day, the big thing was you get a job where you could make your age. So if you were 21, 22, getting a job that you could make $21,000 or $22,000.
That is the best advice I've heard on any of my podcasts. So I hope some of my team hear this, and I'm going to start making their salaries their age.
Yeah.
I don't think that would work
Well, I tell you,
nowadays.
times have changed.
They
That
have
doesn't work.
changed.
That absolutely does not work anymore. But back then, it was a pretty good idea.
That's great.
But my dad had a heart attack at an early age, and while I was a senior at Tech, I still lacked a few months finishing, and so his manager, is a small business, but we did have a manager. He had left the business prior to that, so I tried to go down there in the afternoon and run it and go to class in the morning.
Wow.
And thank goodness he built a pretty good business that withstood a lot of my mistakes. But I learned that business was more challenging and more complicated than I ever dreamed it was.
Yeah.
So after I immersed myself in it, I just didn't. That's what I wanted to do.
That's awesome. So was it both out of necessity and desire at that point? Like at that point with your dad's health, like were you really it in terms of coming alongside some of the people that were already there?
Oh yeah, it was me.
Yeah,
I had to.
Did y'all ever have that conversation as a family, or did you just like kind of jump in because you knew that's what you needed to do?
Well, Dad was sick, and he back at that day, he was only the second one. He was number 2 in Lubbock to have open heart surgery.
Good grief.
So it was new, and back then they said, we don't want you talking to him anything about the business. He had to stay bed rest and they wouldn't do this now, but bed rest for 4 to 5 months of bed rest before they do the surgery to build his heart. That would strengthen his heart. And so I didn't bring up anything about the business.
I bet he never talked to you about the business, though.
He was scared.
Was he pretty good about it?
He was scared. So he really didn't force it. He would ask questions. I'd divert to another topic.
Yeah.
Something.
The weather.
Yeah, the weather.
It's still windy outside.
That's right. That's right. But we made it through that time period, and I survived that, and the business survived. Excuse me. I apologize for getting over
No problem.
But I tell you, I married a sweet lady, Jan, and she really took care of a lot of responsibilities that freed me up to focus and just do that. And it was a good time in our lives. We enjoyed it. I worked hard. I worked long hours, and I could see it grow and see it start paying off. Got enthused about business. Bought a manufacturing company, owned it for 10 years, Good Art Manufacturing, that makes peanut patties.
Okay.
And we grew that business from just a little garage business into one that was really made the number 9 ranked candy bar in Southwest United States. Oh my gosh,
that's awesome. I didn't know that.
And then sold that to the Bobby Borden, and then just focused on that wholesale business.
Okay, that's awesome. So how many years had you been running R.C. Taylor before the relationship with United started to evolve?
Well, of course, there's a long-term relationship with United. I was a supplier of theirs for many, many years, and got to know Robert Snell and several of the family and several of the good folks that worked at United. There's a lot of long-term team members at United, so many of them are still there.
Right.
So I got to know them. So it was hard to say when I really.
Sure.
I think my kids have all been 4 children, and just love my kids and love the grandkids, and they've all been very successful. But none of them wanted to venture out into that business.
Yeah.
I'd pass some of my kids coming in late at night, and I'd be going to work. So they didn't want that schedule.
Yeah.
So I took that, and I visited with some people at United. I remember starting about the late in 2006, 2007, and actually I saw an opportunity to sell my business to United and take care. We had at that time we had 50-something employees, and we'd keep the business intact, and all of them would have a future. So it was really the best deal for all of us. Good partnership.
Yeah.
So I signed an agreement, and I ran their distribution business for 2 years.
Okay.
And then I was asked, when they parted ways with their CEO, I was asked to temporarily take over the CE job, which
temporarily
the
CEO.
So I did, and it was, but just another challenge. And,
sure.
Challenge is what motivates me.
Yeah, sure. And so that's been since around 08, 09?
I took over in 09,
okay.
Late 09.
Okay, so you're 10 years, a little over 10 years into being the CEO of United.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Man, time flies,
No,
doesn't
it does.
It feels like yesterday.
Yeah, it just seems like yesterday, right.
Yeah, so you're currently the CEO of United, and you help United transition to sell, right, to Albertsons. Is that
That's
accurate?
true.
Yeah,
that's
true. Great. So you went from running the family business. Was it really hard selling the family business? I mean, I know you did it. It was good for you. None of your kids wanted to run it. It was good for your employees. But was it difficult? Selling.
Yeah. I mean, anytime that you know that your family, not only yourself, but your family invested so much in a business, and it bore your name, and even my niece did the graphics for that we still use today on trucks, and it was it was a true family effort.
Right.
Anytime you do that, it you have to stop and say, okay, am I doing this for the right reasons?
Right.
And I went to we have a little getaway, little A-frame cabin in Ruidoso. I remember I get up there one morning, I could not. I asked Jan if she'd just leave me alone outside for a while. And sun was coming up, and I got a legal pad out and do the old-fashioned way, the advantages and disadvantages. And so I came up with that. It was really the best thing for everybody concerned.
That's awesome.
But it was hard.
Yeah.
But it was.
Most people, when they sell their family business, they go fish more, and you work more.
Yeah, that's right.
How'd you manage that?
Well, I enjoy working. I enjoy the challenges of work and what it enables you to express yourself.
Sure.
And I felt like I could express myself more through work than any other way.
That's awesome.
And it's good to see something you influence do well, and so that's my total self-satisfaction.
That's great.
And two, you want to take good care of your family.
Sure.
And that always enters in.
So United's been a great business for a long time. You take over, the CEO position, which you're still in. Albertsons buys United, so now you have that relationship. So when you look at your organization, both, the almost 100, or is it over 100 stores yet, or just right under?
95.
95 stores. So
not counting our 34 convenience stores.
Right. Wow. So you have over 100 locations that you're managing. 2
manufacturing plants.
Ah, good grief. Let's just probably keep adding up if we keep talking. But how do you see your role as a leader? So you're the CEO of United. You have 100 plus locations. You got thousands of employees. You have a relationship with Albertsons, obviously. So how do you view your role as a CEO and as a leader within your organization?
We being United is kind of unique within any grocery operation and totally unique within the Albertsons operation, is that we are a limited partnership here in the state of Texas. And so we're a wholly owned subsidiary. And the CEO, past CEO, he's still on the chairman of the board, but Bob Miller, he made it clear that's one reason why we chose Albertsons. We had options, was because he said, I'm just going to leave you alone. Do your thing, keep doing what you do. And that's what's happened. So it's been nice. We do get a lot of advantages of being part of a larger group.
For sure.
So it transitioned, that part transitioned pretty easy. And then it fall into my role as a leader. Of course, I'm glad it started out like it did, because I was put in that position at CEO, and I had people that worked around me and worked with me that had 25 and 30 years of retail grocery experience. I'd been exposed to retail grocery, but from a different light.
Right.
So, but it's kind of my style anyway. I let my people run the business. I just made sure we was all going the same direction. I made sure we all pulled the same way. We thought the same way. We almost ran a democracy, but not totally. But we have an executive team that had their input. They were responsible for every decision and the success of every decision. And if it was a merchandising decision, the HR person had to give their 2 cents and put their 2 cents in. So we really moved along that way. So I had hundreds of years of experience behind me.
In that room, yeah, it's a powerful thing. Yeah.
So really, I just didn't want to mess that up.
Sure.
And so that was really my style then, and then we'd try to progress from there.
Yeah. So thinking practically, how often do you? So what I hear you saying is that your primary role as CEO is basically leading your leaders, so leading your leadership team and ensuring that everyone's kind of going in the same direction, pursuing the same goals and objectives, et cetera, et cetera. What does that practically look like? For example, do you meet once a week for 2 hours? Do you meet every other day? What is some of the practical habits of your leadership team that ensures y'all are on the same page and you're communicating and that kind of thing?
Well, of course, first of all, one of the most important things is the relationship you have with those people, where you have those hall meetings or call on the phone.
Yeah.
You have those things that keep you going.
Ongoing relationship. Yeah.
Besides that, we have one meeting all day long a month, our executive meeting.
Okay.
And we'll invite other people in if we're working in certain areas.
Right.
Then make sure we stay totally connected with the thing that's the most important at United, and that's the stores. I mean, sometimes you can get lost in the weeds and you think that some merchandising profile is more important than the store is the most important thing.
Right.
So you got to support those stores. So on Monday, we have 6 regional RVPs, regional vice presidents. They poll every store about needs, especially things that they have requested, and something hadn't happened, especially that. But they poll them with their needs or something that's just changed. And then every Tuesday morning at 7:30, we have what we call flash call. Now, a lot of people in our group would argue that it's not much of a flash because it lasts sometimes.
Might last 3 hours.
It lasts, no, we try not to make that long. And it's set up when initially, 30, 45 minutes, but it usually lasts an hour and a half. But we go around the room and we have all our executives there, plus some other people that maybe have influenced different parts of the business. And each regional vice president real quickly go through that. So I need some help on this. I need some help on that. So if it's IT, I'd say, Chris St. Clair, make sure you got that taken care of, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
And so that really, I think that's really one thing that kind of glues us together.
Yeah, it helps you stay, like you said, connected to the needs on the ground, so to speak, in the stores where the customers are, which are ultimately, obviously, the most important thing. United has been kind of renowned, or at least from what I've heard, for its culture, for its staff, particularly the in-store staff. And I'm sure that, that also includes everyone in the office per se. But what do you think has cultivated, the culture within United and why it has such a great reputation as it relates to the culture of the organization?
That's a hard question to answer because there's not any one thing you can point to that makes it work. Mm-hmm. I've been fortunate. I inherited that.
Right.
That was the culture. That's what happened. I get questions. We were in share groups before we were purchased by Albertsons and with 6 or 7 other regional grocery chains, and I continually got questions. How do you get the culture? How do you get the teenage young man to walk to the car and actually carry on a conversation? Or how do you do this? How do you do that? Can you send me your manual? Can you send me your training manual?
There's 3-step process.
Yeah, I mean, really, there is
Right.
obviously a training manual because a lot of things we got to comply with.
Right.
But there's not really a set of rules, or we do go through a training process, but that's not where it's at. Where it's at is a culture that we've developed over the years, and I think when a person of any age, I'd start to say young person, but of any age goes to work, they have some people that have been there a long time in that store, and they want to emulate what they do. Mm. Now, that's not saying everybody does the right thing all the time.
Right.
Another thing is that we empower our people. The main rule is do the right thing. Now, the right thing might be the same thing every time. Now, if you're going to have that policy, you got to really train your people to support it. And so when somebody does something that maybe they thought it was the right thing and it may not be, what you do, you have a coaching opportunity. It's not a scolding opportunity. It's not
Right.
time to write somebody up, but it's just a coaching opportunity. And so I think we get 99% right decisions when we do that. And there's some that they go pretty far out on a limb to take care of the guest. We pretty much subscribe to guest is always right, and we try to take care of them.
That's awesome.
And so we want about 1,000%. But
That's good.
That culture's there.
Yeah, one thing I've always admired about you specifically, since I've known you over the last several years, is how often you travel to the stores. Now, with over 100 plus locations, including the convenience stores, obviously you can't be all places at all time. But one thing I've admired is you've made a very conscious decision and effort to visit as many stores as often as you can. Where'd you come up with that? Why do you do that? And what do you think the greatest yield for you personally is, being able to connect with every store like that?
Well, I think for me personally, it's I get a real feel for how the people are. I always take some experts with me that can tell you if the displays are done right.
Right.
Is our pricing in line? They work on that. But I can connect with the people, and I always listen if they've got complaints, and you do from time to time.
Sure.
That's just part of it.
That's nature.
It's
yeah.
how you handle the complaints. You're going to have them.
Right.
And we got to make sure our people feel like somebody's always listening to them, because that empowers them to do the right thing if they really think that we care about them. So that's my favorite thing to do, by the way, is do that. Now, it kind of gets you behind an office, but some stores, in some areas need more attention than others. But I'd say generally my goal is to make every store twice in a year, which
that's a lot of work.
Used to be easy, but pretty well spread out.
That's a lot of crisscrossing.
From Taos, New
Yeah.
Mexico to Dallas,
Yeah.
and then
That's great. Yeah, I've always admired that about you and really appreciate, because that takes a lot of effort. And, in an organization of your size, you could easily say that's someone else's job and you've never done that. And I admire that about you. How do you, on a personal level, approach failure, mistakes? You talk about opportunities for coaching with employees, but how do you, on an individual level, how do you approach failure? And over the years of being such a great leader, what have you tried to learn from failure?
Well, of course, it's tried. Everybody says you got to learn from your mistakes, but it's true. I think you got to go kind of one level deeper. Is this, why didn't I see it coming? Where in me or one of my key people, where was it that we did not see this coming? Usually after the fact, it's real clear.
Right.
So you try to build up things. Okay, we got to learn so we don't this. Not only this does not happen again, but we kind of have to look at it. We got to be analytical enough. We've got to stay in touch with the people. Usually somebody sees something happening.
Right.
And it's how quick can you respond, learn about it, and respond to it. So if you don't really dig down deep, and the tendency sometimes is to say, I'll learn this won't happen again. I'll make sure that doesn't happen again. I'll fix it. And then you sweep the rest of it under the rug. But it's the rest of it that'll keep you from having other things happen that are similar to that. So you gotta learn from your failure. Failure makes you better. And there's a tendency to say that the failure was somebody else's fault or somebody didn't respond or so, but that's not. It's this system that you set up, and I think that you've got to always take it on yourself to say that the failure was my fault because I didn't do this, not Joe's fault or Sally's fault.
Right, owning it.
Right, so you need to own that failure.
That's good. Thanks for sharing that. How do you approach your own personal growth? You got dozens of meetings. I mean, I know you personally, so I know that you're in meeting after meeting after meeting. You work very long hours. You have a lot of employees. You have 100 stores. You have stakeholders like Albertsons and their executive team that you have to answer to and work with. So how does Robert prioritize Robert's growth as a leader? And what does that look like for you?
Well, really some of those meetings you talk about are kind of in my growth plan. I've always felt like that if you did not branch out and get outside of the community of the business that you're in and make new relationships and continue to make new relationships, I've made a lot of new relationships the last 2 or 3 years. But it's valuable. You can only be so effective as one person. So how many times in a day, there's no telling. I get kind of kidded at the office. I said, do we know so-and-so? I'll go ask Robert. But if you don't have a relationship with people that you gain their trust, so when you really need to talk to them about something, it may not be asking for any favors or anything. It could be just simply, hey, I need your advice on this. Because there's a lot of smart people around, and they're smart in their area. And that's where I pick up most of my growth is through that. Of course, I've got to go back in time, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank my dad for giving me basic rights and wrongs. And my dad may not have been the smartest. He graduated from Sam Norwood High School. I think he graduated from there. He was a class of 9. At least I saw his picture on the wall, and never had a chance to go any further in education. So he would, but boy, he could connect with people. And he knew right from wrong, and it was real easy for him to determine that. And how you treat people, that was the number one thing. And of course, my mother was a great, passionate lady that promoted a lot of things here in Lubbock, and she was one of the early YWCAs.
Okay.
She taught me to look past skin color and look past ages and look past all that, because it was the real person you deal with. And then I draw strength from my wife every day, because she's been one of my biggest cheerleaders. Some of our arguments would be over, I just didn't do a very good job. Oh yeah, you did fine. And I know I was terrible.
Yeah. She's your biggest fan. That's good. Yeah.
So it's.
I bet she doesn't mind being honest with you either.
No, she doesn't. Oh no.
I love running into her. She
doesn't mind telling me where I could do better. Also, which you need that.
Yeah, absolutely.
You need that. So really, and as I've gone through my business life, I'd say relationships and people. I made a special effort to get to know Ken Hance and people like that, and the people at Tech, the administrators, and just all through my walk of life, I've just tried to make relationships with folks.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. All right, well, last question for you. It's great to hear your dad's influence. I wish I could have met him. I mean, anyone growing up in Sam Norwood, Texas, and that's a tiny place.
That's a tiny place.
So no doubt he learned a lot of grit and character and growing up somewhere like that. Last question for you. If you could speak to your younger self, what would the Robert now tell the 20-year-old Robert if you could look back and give him some advice?
I kind of got into business in an interesting way. So I don't know that I would go tell myself to change anything. I think I would scold myself sometimes for not taking, as a younger person, taking advantage of all the opportunities that I had. Did I put out maximum effort in every class in school? No, I didn't. Did I read every book I was supposed to read? No, I read a few cliff notes. And it gets you by.
Sure.
So there's those classes. Then there's accounting classes that I loved, and I did everything.
Yeah.
For some reason, I like numbers. So, I probably did not take. I could have made some things a lot easier on myself if I would have taken advantage of everything that was thrown at me. But for the most part, I think I made not brilliant choices, but wise choices every time.
Yeah.
I probably could have made some better choices from time to time, but I think my parents, I thank them for that, and my church I went to, and the people I got to know growing up. Always had a good support group for making the right choice, and so sometimes the right choice wasn't hard. So I don't know that I could tell myself anything that would drastically change. A lot of that is for good fortune.
Sure. Good people around you too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You can break your arm patting yourself on the back. So I probably had very little to do with being able to have a fun and vivacious and challenging business career.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today. Really great to have you. And I appreciate your leadership. Again, just getting to watch you and observe you from a distance, over the last several years. United is very generous and very gracious, to every community that it's in. And I feel like that really starts with you. And I watch you interact with other people, and I watch how much of your time you give, to all kinds of other efforts beyond, just United. And it's really cool to see such a large organization's culture be shaped by, I know there's a lot of people that are shaping it, but you really lead the way. And I admire that. And I think Lubbock is really fortunate that you're the CEO of United and all the incredible impact that you make. So it's been fun watching you and getting to learn from you. And so just really appreciate you.
Well, I appreciate that. But I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the culture at United, personally, I believe in giving back, and long before I became part of United. But the United's culture is one that encourages people to give back and really be part of. And I get more from my involvement, and our United folks get more from their involvement in the communities, because we're in 38, 40 communities now, I believe, and we have leadership roles. We encourage that in especially the smaller communities, because they need that help. So you always get more out of it than you put into it.
That's cool. Yeah. Well,
so thanks for your time.
Yeah. No, I appreciate you. I have a bonus question for you.
A bonus question. Do I get points?
You might. Depends on your answer.
Right.
I've always heard you talk about how, the grocery business has razor thin margins, and it's just getting hyper competitive. I mean, not just, what Walmart's doing and your big boxes like Sam's and Costco, but then you have H-E-B's coming in, but then you have the whole digital transformation of retail. Mm-hmm. And so what value is there with the competition? Like, how does it make you better? Like, it's because you're a large organization. So how does a large organization view and approach competition? Not a specific competitor, but just competition in general.
Well, competition is part of business, so you're going to have it.
Yeah.
So if you don't embrace the challenge, you're going to be defeated right then.
Left in the dust.
Yeah. So you say, okay, this challenge is coming. The pie is only so big. Mm-hmm. So first of all, you got to have a reality check. Is when you have competition come into a market that hadn't been there before, they're going to take a slice of that pie. You just manage your business to where that slice, you can manage around that business and be successful with that slice gone. You just manage your business to where that slice is pretty small.
Yeah.
And so that's the way we look at it. And we do things, in certain areas you learn to coexist, because you know that we have certain competitors in this market and all our other markets. We're in, with Dallas and Albuquerque. And,
right.
We got a lot of competitors. You know that they have their place in the business, and they're going to carve out a niche. You just got to be good at what you're good at, and you got to get better every day.
Yeah. That's incredibly encouraging to hear. Is really what you're saying is focus on who you are and what you do it really, really well, and take care of the business you have.
That's right.
And that's good. It doesn't sound like you spend a lot of time thinking about others. You think a lot about your culture, your people, your services, what you're offering, make it the very best it can be. And yeah, that's
really right. But you got to know your competitors.
Sure.
Too. It
has to be really balanced.
I talk about respect, learning and respecting people. You got to respect your competitors because they're not there because they do things wrong.
Right. They're clearly doing something good. Yeah. What about technology? I promise you this is my last question. What about what have you? I mean, you've had this really cool career where you got to take over as a really young man from your father and his family-owned business, and you've been in it, and so. Just the technology age, like you've seen that, transformative, kind of impact from the very beginning. So what have you learned from that? And like, how do you have to constantly be evaluating technology as society continues to be shaped by new technology? Like, what's that look like in your business?
Well, if anybody watches this that knows me very well, or especially anybody that works with me, they're sitting there just giggling right now. I won't say, I can't wait to hear what he says, because I am not an expert in technology.
Sure.
When I got in business, we had zero technology, a telephone, I guess. We had a telephone. Sure. I remember when the fax machine first came out, I just couldn't believe you could stick a piece of paper in it, and then somebody in Dallas would get print on that piece of paper.
That's awesome.
It's phenomenal. So I'm easily impressed by technology. But at that point too, I know how to do business. I knew how to do business at that time without it. Mm-hmm. I see how technology has advanced everything so fast. I make sure I surround myself with somebody that really understands and that can go out and access, not wait for it to come to you. You're going to be left behind.
Yeah.
And we had meetings about it today before I got here, trying to advance in certain areas of technology that is really not done in the industry right now. We're working on some things that are just really unique.
It's awesome.
Do I work on them? No.
Yeah, for sure.
Do I encourage and do I try to make sure we got the support of the people and the funds to support
resources
to develop it?
That's awesome.
And so that's my role.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I promised no more questions, so I'm going to wrap it up here. But again, really appreciate your time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
Appreciate it, Kate.